Hi, so today I know I'm going live a little bit earlier than I normally do, but this is a very important topic. Um, I believe that in order to make mental health units maybe less traumatizing for those with disabilities, is to have actual people with disabilities that are trained as mental health providers on the units, and they could be the one-on-one helpers or even volunteers coming in with this people with disabilities coming in as volunteers to be one-on-one help support for patients with disabilities on the unit. So this would go not just for adult units but children and teen units as well. Is so maybe as a child unit, you could have it, or even teen, you could have like an actual peer, somebody their age that has a disability, come on and volunteer to be a one-on-one support for that person with disabilities that's on the unit. And that way, having them come in as volunteers also could help them because maybe they could get community service hours toward graduating high school by volunteering on a unit. And on the adult units, as well as the child and teen units, having actual workers go, like getting trained, going to college, taking courses to be a mental health provider, on a mental health unit or units, and working with those kids, teenagers, or adults with disabilities when they come into the unit, and work with them before they're discharged, the day that they're discharged, and beyond that. Like having an actual person with disabilities help somebody with disabilities on the unit and post discharge would just make things so much smoother for transitioning and getting used to life again outside of the unit. And again, they'd have to be obviously trauma informed, trained in trauma and trauma informed. But some of their personal experience can go toward that training, in my opinion, because if they've been on mental health units like I have, they know the trauma that being on a mental health unit or in a hospital in general causes somebody with disabilities. So they already know that, and they wouldn't have to go through as many classes because they have that personal experience. So that would be one thing for the classes. Like the instructors should maybe ask if you have personal experience already as a person with disabilities being on a mental health unit. When you get trauma informed classes and continuing education, and then applying that personal experience as part of class credits and class work, because then in class hour or like part of the clinical hours, because you already have experience personally with being on a unit and having disabilities. And that came from having hours on a unit and days on a unit, even before they started training to become a mental health provider. So they already have some, in a sense, hours because they were on the unit themselves. And that's another reason to have this kind of openness is to, so the current people with disabilities on these units know that they can ask for extra time without feeling awkward about not realizing that they got up from group and going to their room and maybe talking to that person that's working on the unit that has disabilities and talking through with them how they're doing and what they're feeling, and just having that extra buffer of somebody that understands from personal experience. So that's really important to have people with life experiences on these units. That's one thing I appreciated. I think I've said this before in other videos. The therapist on this most recent hospitalization, he literally said to all of us that he was hospitalized on a mental health unit before himself. So he was able to joke around with us a little bit and be lighthearted and that helped a lot for me, knowing that we could crack jokes and not jokes, but like be funny and like create little insider things. Like every time something was misplaced or was not where the rest of the puzzle was, like a puzzle piece was all the way over at this table, and then this table is where the puzzle was. I I would literally say, "Oh, is this a random health issue?" So, and I think I felt free to say that. We're free to say that on this unit because the therapist on the unit opened up to us about about him having been admitted and being lighthearted and like saying stuff just to make us laugh every day. So that made it a lot easier to like make it through the hospitalization. Just having that lighthearted, joking around kind of thing going on every day when we were awake and when he was there. Like, as his patients asked him, like all of the people that were there when I was there, and I asked him when we were discharged, would he have to be admitted himself? And he said, maybe. And of course, made all of us laugh. So it just made it easier to be on the unit because you knew you'd see him twice a day, once in the morning and once in the afternoon. And you never knew what he'd say or what he'd say to make us laugh, and or like having him, even though like it wasn't really his job to talk to us one-on-one, he did offer if we ever wanted to, we could talk to him one-on-one. And I did do that one day, and that made it so much easier to like get through the hospitalization than my other two hospitalizations, where it was a social worker and a psychiatrist. And him also being willing to give it, like, I know I asked him for his card, I totally forgot before I was discharged, but just having him offer us his card for when he does have his post private practice was helpful and nice. The psychiatrist, my second time around, also offered, said he would be willing to stay with me if he took my insurance, which it turned out he doesn't accept that psychiatrist doesn't accept my insurance, and didn't in 2024. And that was disappointing, but just him being willing to continue with me, just offering that, made it easier than the first time. Then this third time made it easier than the first and second time. So that is why it's important to have somebody with experience on the units, not just anybody, but somebody with disabilities with experience on mental health units. Be there for any potential current or potential patient coming into the unit. And like I said, they could use their hours as volunteering toward their credits for clinical hours. That would be my suggestion anyways. And then, yeah, they would still get trained in being more in disability and like certain ones and how they present themselves. But if they have experienced themselves and they know certain, obviously, whatever disabilities they have, they will know how they might present in a person that also has mental health issues. That's it for this video. I will see you again tomorrow. Thanks. Bye.